live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I am so excited to host critically acclaimed, award-nominated Oxygen Book Club Pick of the Month, Julia Dahl, here to tell us all about her brand new, red-hot new book, The Missing Hours, fresh off a rave review from the New York Times this weekend. Julia, welcome to Mystery and Thriller Mavens. Tell us about this book.
Thank you so much. The Missing Hours is a thriller, and it's dark, but it's really fast paced. It's about a young woman, a college student, who wakes up and she knows that something really bad has happened to her, but she doesn't have any memory of it. And it is the story of what she does and what happens to all the people around her in the wake of this awful incident.
Oh my gosh. So timely and timeless. So Julia, I want to get into every single detail of your research, of the inspiration, of everything related to this book. But first, I just want to welcome all of our friends who are watching on Facebook, who are watching on YouTube, who are watching on my channels, who are watching on Murder by the Books channels. Welcome, 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 everybody. If you've been here before, you know how this goes. And if you're new, welcome. Here's how it goes. Every week for Mystery Monday, because you know Mondays can be murder, I give you my hand-picked featured authors. And y'all, I got to toot my horn. I can pick them. And you get to ask them anything. So ask this incredible journalist turned critically acclaimed author about her writing process. Ask her about her book. Ask her about her characters, her research, anything you want to know. This is the place. Get it going in the comments, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or anywhere. I'll see your comments. I'll get it right over to Julia. This is your time. This is your chance to ask our author anything. So get it going. Christina Powers, welcome. She says, hi, ladies. She is, of course, a politically read girl on Instagram. She's a book influencer. Great to have you here, Christina, as always. Leslie is saying hello from Canada. That's her signature Canadian hello. Leslie, great to have you here. Mystery and Thriller Maven, top community member. Always a pleasure to see you. Thanks for joining us. George Beach, good afternoon to you. Great to have you here as always, sir. Sharon says, good afternoon, ladies. Sharon, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. So, y'all, I got a lot of questions for Julia, and I know you do too, so get them going in the comments. But I'm going to kick off because I have so much I've got to know about. So, in case you missed it this weekend, oh, Jody's saying hi from Texas. Hey, Jody, welcome. So great to have you. Thanks for joining us. So if you missed it, Julia got an amazing, let's say, rave review from the New York Times this very weekend, who said that this is an adventure thriller and a great reckoning with the moment we find ourselves in, which is kind of amazing because it takes a while to write this book. You didn't just write this last week, Julia. So you wrote it before the reckoning. Tell us why this book, what's the inspiration? Give us the backstory. Give us some secrets.
It's true. I started writing this book actually before Me Too. I mean, this is a book about the impact of sexual assault and just about the world where sexual assault victims are never believed and are thought of as really sort of, they're almost like the perpetrator themselves. You know, what were you wearing? Why did you get so drunk? That kind of thing, right? So that is sadly not gotten any better since Me Too. And I started writing before that. But the main impetus of this book was I used to be a crime reporter. I was working at CBS News back in 2012. And there was this crazy story out of Stevenville, Ohio, about a high school girl who got really drunk at a party and was assaulted. And the boys there took pictures of her and sent them all around the school and the town. And she had no idea what had happened. And then all of a sudden pictures are popping up like on her friends' phones. And I couldn't, you know, the boys a couple of them ended up being behind bars for a very little while. But the thing I couldn't stop thinking about was like, what would it be like to be this girl and have the most humiliating, traumatic moment of your life documented and spread around? And then also, what would it be like to be her best friend and her sister and her family? And I could not stop thinking about that. And so when you're a writer, you get obsessed with something, you know, you have to write about it. So a few years later, I started writing The Missing Hours.
Very cool. And I like how you said what, because I remember that case, and I'm sure a
Yeah.
lot of us in the audience do. Let us know if you remember that case. And what I like is that you were thinking about what was it like to be this girl, but was it like to be her friend, to be watching this go down in real time, and all of the very complex, wounding, shocking, crazy things that spin out from there.
Yeah.
Christina is saying that this was a phenomenal book.
Thank
Christina,
you.
thank you. Let us know what you loved most about it, because I know you read a lot there. What did you find phenomenal about it? Let us know in the comments. So Julia, the Sun Sentinel also gave you a rave review, calling this a provocative and timely standalone novel about revenge, sexual assault, and manipulation. Again, that word timely, but again, you started writing this before me too. So timely, and also sadly timeless. What do you hope that people take away from this book?
I hope, I made the main character is a woman named Claudia Castro, and she's 19 years old, and she's beautiful, and she's wealthy, and she's sort of fabulous. She's kind of like a girl about town in Manhattan. And she's got a lot of Instagram followers. She's one of those young women who is, very sexy and uses and kind of, takes pictures of herself in bikinis and puts them on Instagram. And why not? Right. If you're sexy and 19, I have no problem with that. But she recognizes that immediately after what has happened to her. She wakes up and she knows she's been assaulted. She realizes, like, nobody's going to feel sorry for me. They're all just going to be like, you got drunk, too bad. What were you wearing? And I realized that that's the kind of thing that has always happened. And I mean, I hope not will always happen, but I sensed when I started writing about it in 2016 that it was not going to go away. I remember when Me Too happened, I was like, oh, wow, maybe we'll have some kind of reckoning here. Maybe I'll change the story. And the story just sort of stayed the same. It's really sad. And I wanted readers to make it a little bit difficult to like Claudia, because so many, most people are not the perfect victim, right? Most of us are not, saints, but you don't have to be a saint to deserve justice. And I really wanted readers to look at Claudia and maybe criticize her rightfully for some of the things she does and the way she behaves, but still recognize that she did not deserve what happened to her, and she deserves to get some kind of justice. And I think that there's too much of that. Well, if she got drunk or if she wore this, that, what did she expect? But I really wanted to challenge that with this book.
That is so important, because I keep noticing, in spite of the fact that we're all working with our wokeness, we still tend to think those thoughts, and we see that a lot. I'm trying to notice that more and more. So thank you for diving right in and addressing that. Christina's saying she liked the book because it stood out to me with her character-driven angst, where she was fed up and wanted a different narrative. Julia, your response?
Yeah, I mean, the sad thing about what Claudia recognizes right after she realizes that she's been assaulted is that she's not like, going to the police is not really probably going to help her. That, they'll sort of critique her and nothing, she's not going to feel justice. And so but she's not going to just like bow down and feel sad about it for the rest of her life. She sort of feels like, for better or for worse. I mean, I don't really recommend people do necessarily what Claudia does, but she wanted to change the story. She really, and that was like, I almost thought I played with that for a title for this book. I really wanted her to sort of say, like, they are trying to make this their story, but it's my story. I'm taking back control of this narrative. Exactly as Christina said. I'm so glad you got that from the book, because that was really important to me.
Yay, Christina, thanks for getting that.
Yeah.
Leslie's saying our society is hugely flawed and still has yet to fix itself. Thank you for featuring this issue. Yes, absolutely. Leslie, great point. Christina adding, she was unlikable, but at the same time, I wanted a different narrative to her story.
Yeah.
Again, Julia saying that you wanted to play with the idea of changing that narrative, and which I think is really fascinating. Leslie chiming in, we as women also tend to criticize other women when we should be allies. Yes. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of reasons why we do that, in the sense of false scarcity, in the sense of competition, in the sense of, if your entire worth is hanging on how you look, then we've got to really be on top of, that, and how other women look. And there's a lot going on there. A really great point. Thank you, everyone. I'm just scrolling down, making sure I'm not missing anything. Julia, another one of the, I just want to let everyone know, I just learned myself, Oxygen picked your book as the Oxygen Book Club of the Month. Congratulations. So I'm popping the link in the comments. So for anyone who wants to continue the conversation with everyone else who's reading that book, pop over there. You can check it out. Really cool to see that. Congratulations. Another one of the many reviews that I loved was from Alafair Burke. She said, The Missing Hours is not only a dark and well-paced thriller, but also a thoughtful exploration of the meaning of vengeance, survival, and justice. As a crime reporter, Julia, let's talk about justice. How did your background as a crime reporter influence your concept of justice?
Right. I mean, so much of what I learned as a crime reporter is that the quote unquote justice system doesn't work for so many people. And so many people could turn to the system hoping that they'll get justice, but it doesn't really work that way. And I mean, the number of women who even report their sexual assaults, right, is like a very low percent. And the number of people who are sexually assaulted and end up, going through the whole thing where they actually arrest somebody and then they actually go to trial and they actually convict somebody, it's like vanishingly small. And you don't really know that as a kid growing up. You think like, oh, well, if something bad happens to me, I call the police and everything will be fine. And that's just not how it works, right? Especially with sexual assault, but even with other crimes. One of the things that I found out early in my career, I wrote a profile of a young Black woman who had escaped Hurricane Katrina and been displaced, and she was murdered like 6 months after Katrina in Houston. And it is now 15, 16 years later, and they've never made any progress on her case. And from that made me mad, right? And I remember thinking, like, if that was my sister and she was found murdered and nobody pays for it, I would be, I mean, I don't know how I would go on. But then I start looking into it and I realize that, especially for young women of color, if you are murdered, you are unlikely to, that case is not likely to be solved. And in many cities around the country, fewer than half of homicides are actually solved with like an arrest and a conviction. And like, that's the kind of stuff that you don't think of when you're a kid. You think like, if somebody kills somebody, they go, they get the police investigate, I mean, everybody's watched Law and Order, and almost all the time the bad guy gets convicted, or at least he gets put on trial. But investigations are wildly imperfect. And that kind of lack of justice for so many people, especially women of color, made me so mad when I was a young reporter. And I really wanted to sort of focus on the problems in the justice system, which is what I sort of feel like I tried to spend a lot of my career as a journalist doing.
I love that. As I was researching my next book, I was shocked to realize how many murders go unsolved. Solid 30% today go unsolved in the United States. And I think I sort of had this, ego-driven arrogance. Oh, in the US, we have such a good sense of justice here. And, we 99, I would have guessed 99% were solved. Poor jerk, no, it's all, you have a 30% chance of getting away with murder today. 2001
in some cities, like more than 50%.
Yeah, it's shocking. It really is. And I think the other thing that's most shocking is that most people who are murdered by someone they know. It's not
totally
shocking.
Right. The joke of like, it's always the boyfriend, like it's often the boyfriend. And and if you're and certain segments of the society are even less likely than 30%, right? Like certainly, like, God, if you happen to be a sex worker, or if you've done drugs, or if you don't have a home, like your murder is not a priority for police, and your sexual assault is not a priority for police.
Right. This, I mean, this behind the scenes hashtag BTS on murder from a crime reporter is eye opening, y'all. Oh my goodness,
Yeah,
eye
totally.
opening. Christina is saying thank you for the kind words there, Julia. I want to welcome Rebecca, welcome Patty, welcome Karen, welcome LA. Welcome Sharon. I'm making sure I didn't miss anybody. Okay, just I'm scrolling through the comments because I want y'all to get your time with this author. Okay. Christina saying your statement regarding unsolved cases, and now this case is has full blown attention of the country on top of the FBI. Jody saying this is shocking. Jody, right? I was shocked when I learned it. LA Chandler saying the numbers are terrifying, right? LA? I mean, they really are. She said it's why Julia's books are so important. Yes, absolutely. And especially that extra layer of accountability and care with details as a former crime reporter. I mean, I doubly respect that. So I love that. Sharon saying, what a sad statistic. Sharon, it's shocking, right? Christina, bringing up the cool questions as always.
Yes.
What is your opinion of the Gabby Petito case? All true crime people like me. I mean, we're just watching and tell us.
So I am of two minds about this case. First of all, obviously, it's like a total disgusting tragedy, right? And like, you know, a young woman goes missing. You know, I don't know if her boyfriend did it, but he certainly is not. You know, I would hope that if I went missing, my boyfriend would be a little more forthcoming in trying to find me. We'll leave it at that. But one of the things that bugs me about this case is that so many women go missing, and Gabby, again, it's a total tragedy. You know, she's pretty and blonde and white, and so it makes you know, she's perfect for headlines. She's perfect for pictures. She always already had a million, you know, like lots of Instagram followers. She's sort of like that. She's an easy victim to like, right? She's beautiful. She seems kind of, you know, innocent in a way. And, you know, but we don't get that excited about the hundreds and thousands of missing girls who are not white and cute and, you know, who are not documenting their lives on van life and stuff. And so I just like, part of me is like, there is a little bit of a problem with the way the media gets like salivates over a story like this. And there is something kind of gross about like all the pictures of her. And she's so like we care that she is found, but there's also a sense of like, we're selling her. We're using her to sell like our ads and watch more CNN so you can, you know, get more updates on the Gabby Petty case. But like, you know, the numbers of like Indigenous women who go missing every year in that part of the country is shocking. So again, two minds. I am very hopeful that they find this boyfriend, right? I mean, like he shouldn't be, he shouldn't be able to just run off. But I also feel like as somebody who I care a lot about the media and I care a lot about the way the media portrays criminal justice and portrays, you know, who really are the main victims of society. There's something like a little bit icky about the focus for me. I don't know if that might be.
A lot to wade through there because it's so true. And balancing all of these needs with, you know, she's an easy victim to like. It's interesting. It's such a switch in your brain to think about victims in that way. Who's easy to like? Who's going to sell? Who's going to keep people watching through the commercial? Who's going to get people to buy that paper? Is it the cute blonde, you know, the perky
right? Like she's someone who gets all the attention, and there are lots of missing and murdered women all over the country and don't get any attention. But at the same time, like for her family, this is 9/11 times 10. I mean, this is the worst thing that will ever happen to them. It will traumatize them for the rest of their lives, and all the people that love her. That is not to take away from the absolute tragedy of this. And I really hope that there's justice, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Christina's saying that's exactly what she said to her mom yesterday. The attention of this case in comparison to other cases, really concerning. LA chiming in saying, agree, it's the wealthy and or media sellable victims who have a still remote chance of justice. And again, such a bizarre switch in your brain to try to think of it that way, but indeed that's what we're seeing, and that's what we need to be talking about and need to be realizing. Sharon saying, buying your book for Murder by the Book now. Yay, Sharon, thank you so much. Sharon. She says this issue has to be addressed and must stop being the woman's fault. Amen, Sharon. Preach, girl. And thank you for supporting a woman-owned independent bookstore. You rock. Thank you so much. I'm going to put the link to buy the book so everyone else can grab it too from Murder by the Book. Support a woman-owned independent bookstore. Let's vote with our dollars, y'all. Let's get those books going. You know what I realized? I used to think of voting as something I did every 4 years. No, it's every time you swipe that credit card, you're voting for the world you want to see. You're voting for the authors you want to see. You're voting for the stores you want to see. That's your vote every time you swipe. So swipe for a good cause.
Sarah, you are the best saleswoman ever. Can I carry you with me all the time?
Oh my God, you carry me in your purse. I ride on a little piggyback. I go to NYU with you and I listen to and then I pop out and wave your book around. I do that. Woo! Okay, what other questions do y'all have? Alex Segora, who was on the show last week or the week before, raves. Let me find, where did I put his? He said Julia Dahl is one of the most vibrant voices in crime fiction, and The Missing Hour solidifies that with a timely, explosive novel that feels all too real and echoes greats like Megan Abbott and Allison Galen. I couldn't stop thinking about this haunting, propulsive novel that will stick with me for a very long time. Rave review from Alex there. Julia, your response.
I mean, well, first of all, Alex is the ultimate mensch. He is like one of the things that I love. You know, I wrote my first novel. It came out in 2014, and I just, you know, when you write your first novel, you're just alone in your room. You don't know if anybody will ever read the book, and you just are passionate about it. And it came out, and I decided to go to my agent. Said, you should go to this conference, VoucherCon. It's like a conference of mystery writers every year, and I was like, okay. So I went. I didn't have a kid, so I could like get on a plane, just go with very little preparation. And it was the beginning of being part of this unbelievably warm and loving and supportive community of crime writers, people who write about basically the worst of human nature, but maybe are some of the most warm, wonderful, big-hearted people I've ever met. I mean, there's no sense in this community, and Alex is the perfect example of this. He's a fantastic author of multiple genres. Let's also talk about that. Not only is he working on comic books, but he writes amazing detective fiction, and he has a new novel coming up that brings together crime fiction and comic books, which I can't wait for. But there's no sense of like competition in this world. Like it is absolutely rising tide lifts all boat. Like we support each other. We understand each other as authors. You know, I have all these wonderful blurbs for this book. You know, these are people who didn't have to spend the time to read it and say something nice. And they did because they are wonderful people. I mean, I like to think the book's decent too, but also it's just like such a great community of people, and Murder by the Book is part of that, right? Like this is a bookstore that supports this community of people, and I love being part of it.
Yeah, I have to say, having segued over from some other world, I couldn't believe how nice the mystery and thriller world is. I couldn't believe how great the readers are. I couldn't believe how great the other authors are, how great the booksellers are. I actually was like, am I being punked? Am I on candid camera? Like, you guys can't be this nice. It can't be true. I'm being tricked or something. But no, people are just this great because everybody here is united in their love for reading, and there's enough for everyone to go around. And I have to say, I love this community. I love my mystery and thriller mavens. I love my authors. I love my readers. Y'all are the best. And I want to let everyone know, I started a Facebook group to continue the conversation. So I put it in the comments. You can join my Facebook group. It's free and open to all. I do giveaways. You can do author requests. You can submit your questions in advance. So click over and join. Would love to have you. I see a good comment here. Barry is saying Julia brings her conscience to everything she tackles, always going beneath the surface. I love
Barry is one of my former CBS coworkers who taught me a lot about how to be a crime reporter. Hi, Barry.
Ooh.
Yeah. He is a long-time crime journalist. So that means a lot.
Ooh.
Thank you.
Ooh. What did he teach you? What are the three most important things that Barry
You know what? The most important thing, well, I'll tell you the most important is don't rush. We would be in a newsroom, and, you know, if breaking news is happening and they're like, you know, get it out there. And it's, you know, some awful shooting and we have the numbers of people dead, or we have a possible name of a shooter, but we don't have it confirmed yet. And somebody in the newsroom is going, we need to be first. Hit the button. And Barry was going, stop, make sure you get it right. And that is such good advice. I give my students that advice all the time. Being first, especially in this day and age where everybody, you know, it's like 24/7, you're always the first and then you're the last and who cares? getting it right matters so much.
Ooh, I love that advice from renowned crime reporter Barry Leibovitz. Y'all, Julia says he taught her what she knows. So, what an amazing thing. Barry, we're so lucky to have you here. Thank you for joining us. And Julia, thank you for sharing what Barry taught you, dropping those gems of wisdom. Okay, Christina would like, okay, George is saying, go McKenna, go. Yes, everyone buy from Murder by the Book. Christina would like to know any hints on the direction of your next work in progress. Definitely Megan Abbott vibes, who I hosted a few months ago.
Oh, she's so great. Actually, there is like it's funny when I haven't read The Turnout yet. I am in the middle of a billion. I have a TBR list that's ridiculous. But when I saw her posting about how there's a contractor in The Turnout, I have a more of a handyman in my work in progress. All I'll say about it is that it takes place in a small river town, so kind of Hudson Valley, small town. So there's one of the main characters is a small town reporter, basically the only reporter at a newspaper. I really wanted to go back to writing about a reporter. I love reporters. I'm kind of thinking of the book as a mix of like, one of my favorite authors is Celeste Ng, who wrote Everything I Never Told You and Little Fires Everywhere.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of this book as kind of like Everything I Never Told You meets Mayor of Easttown, because it's also like a murder mystery, kind of gritty. But it's basically a small town, kind of a murder mystery, but also family drama, lots of secrets, lots of bad behavior, that kind of stuff.
Lots of bad.
It'll be a while. I am really just in the first 50 pages at this point, but I do have a decent outline, and I am like so excited to get going on it.
Ooh, well, we are here for the bad behavior. Okay, loving this. Okay, Sharon would like to know, is this based on a news story you heard about? Give us the skinny on that news story.
On the work in progress?
I think she meant, give us both.
Okay, so the work in progress, there is I'm a huge fan, I'm sure probably many of you are too, of true crime podcasts, right? Okay. So one of my favorite, and this is another sort of weird Megan Abbott connection, is that I remember her saying that The Turnout at some level was inspired by the Dirty John podcast, which was this podcast where like this awful guy was sort of like, I don't know, scamming a bunch of women, right? And what she took away from that, or what the gem or the sort of crux that she created as part of her book, was the way the women really turned on each other in that book, like not supporting each other and being really angry at each other and sort of thinking the worst. So there's another true crime podcast that actually I think is by the same company. It was called Over My Dead Body. And basically it's a story about a family where there's a murder in the family, and a lot of it's about like custody of a child. And there's child custody situations in my current book. So that I don't want to like give too much away, but I'm now a mom. I have an almost 6-year-old boy, and I think the sort of drama, the love and drama and craziness of being a mom is something, and just parenthood and how you get like mama bear about things is going to be something that's going to be part of the new book as well.
I love that. And could you just tell us a little bit more about the story back in your crime reporting days that inspired or planted that seed in your forehead? The Stevenville case. I remember the case, and I don't know why that case stood out to me. But for those who don't, can you give us the skinny on that? Yeah.
So that was back in 2012, and it was like basically a house party. High school kids had a house party, and one of the girls there got passed out drunk, and she was assaulted, and the kids took pictures of her and passed them around all over the town. And it all sort of came out. It was this very strange case in that the town really was covering the whole thing up. It was involving football players on the state champion football team, and nobody wanted to get them in trouble, and the coach was involved. It was like a huge it was like the worst case scenario for that like small town covering up for the athlete boys and not caring about
Virginia, right?
It was Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, that was a horrible case, but there were a lot of others in that time period that I was writing and reading about where basically young girls were victims of crimes, sexual crimes, and people were taking pictures and passing them around. And there's this like and there's now a name for that called revenge porn. And it's basically, and there are laws in some places where like it is illegal to pass around stuff like that. But well, I mean, it's always been illegal if it was somebody underage, because that's considered child porn and stuff. But this idea, because social media and our phones are now, we all have video cameras in our pockets constantly, right? So it's so easy to take a picture of something awful and pass it around, and it's just like wildfire. It goes everywhere. And I reported on a lot of those cases, and then I also reported on a lot of just more without the video thing, but a lot of sexual assaults on college campuses, and a lot of women. I'm actually having a discussion with a woman who I interviewed 10 years ago, who had been assaulted at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and she and another survivor got together and sued the university, because basically they said that they went to the university and they were like, I was assaulted. This guy like lives down the hall. What are you going to, I need help. I can't, I need to do something. And the university, was not, to their satisfaction, able to deal with it properly. And now this woman is getting a PhD. She's an activist. She's really made an amazing life and name for herself. And we're going to do an interview tomorrow. But there were just so many cases of college campus sexual assaults, which we all know. I mean, I think about, a lot of this book too came from my own experience when I was in college, and the early years after. I got way too drunk many times, where I needed help getting home. And I was just lucky enough that the people I was with didn't assault me. I mean, and that's what it was. It was luck. Like, I was with a guy or a couple guys or a friend who didn't leave me, and I got home safe. And what's the difference between me and, the woman, the big case out of Stanford, Chanel Miller, who wrote a beautiful memoir called Know My Name, which was very much an inspiration for this book. She got too drunk at a party, and her friend lost her, and a guy dragged her behind a dumpster and assaulted her. And, what if she had just been with a guy who actually just helped her home, right? Yeah. The luck was she was with a rapist. And I have felt a lot of that in the last few years, thinking like, I just got lucky on those nights when I was too drunk, and that freaks me out.
Yeah, that is, it's a sobering thought. It's because because the ramifications of that luck or not affect everything.
Yeah.
LA Chandler saying it's so true about the crime community. Everyone here really roots for each other. LA, totally. It's been such a wonderful, wonderful delight to be here. Barry saying thanks for the kind words, Julia. Yay. George saying being first is so overrated. These stations in Houston are always, we have it here first. And then there are multitudes of corrections. Right. And the problem with corrections is that you never really hear them as much as
exactly. We, for a while the thing I'm thinking about a lot is one of the stories that Barry and I covered was the Sandy Hook shooting years ago. And initially we all had the guy's name wrong. We were identifying the shooter as his brother because he had been carrying his brother's ID. That's not really okay. you know? And when that happened, because at some level we were rushing and we didn't double check and confirm.
Yeah, I'm thinking right now as someone with siblings that I would not want to be held accountable for their actions.
Right.
And not that they would do anything like that. I mean, but I don't want to be mistaken. It's so funny. Christina saying Little Fires Everywhere is such a dear favorite. I love that book, Celeste. I
love her book because they're so obviously they're literary and they're gorgeous books about characters and relationships, but they're also crime novels. Like the first line I think of Everything I Never Told You is she's dead, but they don't know it yet. And then Little Fires Everywhere, of course, is about an arson, like who did it? It's totally a mystery. It's just kind of like not billed that way.
Yeah. And what I love about Celeste's books is that it's not that much. Dramatic things are happening, but it's so deeply, richly complex and textured, and you just are devouring it. And I loved the series that became on Hulu with Reese Witherspoon and Kerry Washington as well. So amazing.
Cool. I loved it.
Jody saying, did you see the TV series starring Dirty John starring Crime? I did, Jody. My sister Hannah and I devoured that a year and a half, almost 2 years ago at Christmas. We sat there and binge watched it for 2 days straight. We didn't even get up to eat. It was so freaking good. It was so tasty. It was also really frustrating. I was like, woman, wake up. But yeah. Christina's saying she heard the same thing. Insight regarding Meg and Abbott. Love that.
Yeah.
Welcome, Marilyn. Welcome, Maggie. Great to have y'all here. Thanks so much for joining. Making sure I didn't miss anybody. Oh my goodness, I just realized we're over our time. So, Julia, any parting thoughts or words that you'd like to share with us? Y'all, if we have time for one more question or two more questions, get them going in the comments.
I mean, I hope the book, I'll warn you, it's kind of a hard book to read. It's dark and it's about sexual assault. But I really wanted to give voice to someone who this had happened to, and to the family of someone who this has happened to, to sort of get us to be really explicit about the pain, the kind of ripples of pain that this kind of thing can create in not just a family, but in a community. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about, we haven't talked about this at all, but about masculinity and how being a young woman is difficult, but honestly, for a lot of young men, it's difficult too, trying to figure out how do I be the gentleman, but girls also like the bad boy? How do I kind of balance that? One of the main characters is a kid named Trevor. And I really wanted to give him a voice because I think it's hard to be a young person, man or woman. And that was something I wanted to explore too in the book. And then we are often at cross purposes, young men and women, trying to figure out how to talk to each other and interact with each other.
That's such a good point. That's a really good point because we are. Christina saying, I just want to thank you, Julia. Your writing is riveting.
Thank you.
Yay. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Christina. I'm just sharing a few other of your amazing rave reviews here in the comments for anyone who wants to check them out. Julia, I'm going back to that thing that you said about the importance of not rushing, which Barry Leibowitz taught you and was key, you said, to being a good crime reporter. How has that impacted your writing as an author? Are you taking your time? How long does it take you to write a book?
It took me a lot longer to write this book than I wish it had. And partly that was because it was the first book I'd written as a mom and I just didn't have as much time. And my brain was soft as the mother of an infant. But in terms of taking time, it is really important to me to get things right. My previous series of books was about the Hasidic Jewish community, and I'm Jewish, but I'm not part of the Hasidic community. And I realized that if I was going to write about a community I wasn't part of, I needed to get it right. And so I spent a lot of time interviewing people and having people read the work I'd done and find problems. And even for this book, I did the same thing. I had people who had been victims of sexual assault, and who work with victims of sexual assault read the book to flag things that felt weird or felt wrong, because it's really important to me to honor the real experiences of people. I mean, this is fiction. I made it all up. There's no based on a true story here exactly. But there's a lot of truth in, I want there to be emotional truth and I want there to be psychological truth. And I am really grateful to the couple of women who read this book before it was published, who were able to say this doesn't quite ring true, or I'm not, this wasn't my experience, so that I could at least feel like I was being responsible and in publishing something about, I am luckily have not been the victim of sexual assault. But I wanted to write about, I wanted to be as truthful as I could about what that is like.
Would you say that your experience as a journalist deepened or intensified your need to get it right, to honor these stories? Yeah,
totally. I mean, I do, every once in a while I'll read a novel and I'll be like, that's not right. And even though it's fiction, it undermines your sort of trust in the writer. If they're writing about something that you happen to know something about, some community or some place, and they get it wrong, it takes me out of the sort of suspension of disbelief that you have to have when you're reading a novel, right? It takes you out of that. But also I think, being a journalist definitely made me a better fiction writer, partly because I was exposed to so much more about humanity, but also because it forced me to write every day and write succinctly. A lot of sort of young fiction writers, we think that like, I need like 10 adjectives to add to this sentence, or like 15 ways to describe the sky. Like really what people are looking for is, I think, action and truth and specificity, nouns and verbs. And as a journalist, you learn that's your currency. I think I've become a better writer having been a journalist as well.
I love that. The specificity, the brevity, and probably being able to write under deadline and to write very crisply and very to the point. Whereas I'm over here rambling away, just getting longer and longer.
Right. There's I don't know who said it. I mean, everybody, like everything is attributed to Mark Twain, but there's like a great quote about writing it. Like I would have written it shorter, but I didn't have time.
Right.
Because it's harder to like edit yourself than to just go on and on and on.
Exactly. Christina's saying she really appreciates your research, your care to reach out to sensitivity readers to make sure you're getting it right. She's heard others reach out to people to read to make sure that it's sound, and she appreciates that level of detail. Absolutely, Christina. That's such a good point. She's saying S.A. Crosby did that with his latest Razorblade Tears. Absolutely. Y'all, I just want to remind you to grab your copy today. Support a woman-owned indie, Murder by the Book, our favorite bookstore. And don't forget to join my Facebook group to continue this conversation, because there's so much to discuss. Julia Dahl, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been such a pleasure to host you. Congratulations on your amazing, amazing reviews. That rave review in the New York Times Oxygen book club pick of the month. You are just hitting it out of the park, and deservedly so. The Missing Hours addresses so much important things and hooked us good. Please come back and talk to us next time when your next book is out. And Mystery and Thriller fans, I will see you at 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 and 7 p.m. Central tonight with Andrea Bartz and Kate Moretti. See you soon.
Amazing.